Hello and welcome. Campbell here from Autodidactic, back with another show with Paula and unveiling the fake history of Melbourne. Yeah, we've had a lot of feedback on the last video, especially about the photos that we were discussing and how real or unreal are they. And of course we showed a few, right, where the shadows kind of gave it away. So yeah, let's get into it and see what Paula's found for us this week. How you going, Paula?
I'm good, Campbell. Thank you very much for having me again. Yeah, we were going to do mansions, but we got such a good response from our last video that I thought I might continue down a little bit of a different path today, and we've got a lot to cover, so I'll get started. So we mentioned the Oriental Bank. So I'll quickly go over the Oriental Bank. If you can show up some pictures, Campbell, that'd be great. Now the picture we were actually talking about last week was showing a very dark, very old-looking building amongst other buildings in a very sort of desolate street, and I found it. So we'll pop that one up, and then that apparently is the early 1850s. Photo of the Oriental Bank.
This one.
Then, no, sorry.
Not that one? That's the Oriental Bank.
No. Yeah, there's yeah, hang on. It might be the other Oriental Bank one I sent. There's about 7 photos in there.
Oh.
Try that one. Sorry, Bank. Campbell.
Alternative history. Clarence Mansion. Oh, did I miss them? One second.
There's another one with
I've got Oriental alternative history proof. Is that it? 1880 picture. There's only one here of the. Oh, hang on. What's going on here?
There should be another one.
Yes, 1 minute.
Yeah, that was my fault. I sent the bank off without adding any more. So I had to do another email. Sorry, Campbell. I'm trying to get organised.
I know. Well, you should get together, our Paula. Bloody hell.
I know you got me on a time span. I don't know how you can do that.
Oh, yeah.
That's why
getting up at 6.
I know you're flying. Yeah, the pressure's on you today, Campbell.
I know, right? I'm almost there. Okay.
So yeah, so what I want to show here is this bank in apparently the early 1850s looks really, really, really like black and old, and yeah, it just doesn't belong in this street. And then we get, after we look at that one, we get another few photos of the same building, and it all of a sudden looks a little bit newer. So I'm tipping it's been painted. So there's the photo. Totally out of place.
Yeah.
In the early 1850s.
Very black tone. Look at the size of it, man. Dirt roads, all these like bollards are all bent.
Yeah.
So we've got a paved gutter here and dirt roads.
It's just one of the most bizarre photos again of our early, history. His story. Yeah, so and it looks so dark. I know it's a black and white photo. I know that, but then it looks ominous in that picture. So then we go in.
Light coming in, right, and it's very dark on the side here. But this one, these buildings, they're nowhere near. Yeah.
Why is it so dark? And here we are. This is going, in the 1860s, 1870s. This is another picture of the same bank. Yet we've got no buildings around it.
Yeah, exactly right. Just trying to see. Oh, yeah, it could be.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, there was a street there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got that photo, and then if you want to go to another photo, it seems to get. Oh no, not that one.
Not that one.
No, that one. So that's a later one, and I think that one, that's a much later photo of it.
Definitely looks cleaned up, doesn't it?
It looks, yeah. Look at the size of it.
Yeah. Oh, and there's our Ned Kelly man again.
Yes. No, they all just happen to be standing there posing, looking up at the building for the photo. I mean,
and look at this road, man. They look like
look at the mud.
Just chopped up mud, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, piled up around this. What is that?
Yep.
A light letterbox? Yeah, right.
Oh, I can't. Yeah. So
how high was it? Sorry. See, and this is earlier. This has got like a footpath out the front.
Yep.
You know, and the roads, you know, they're still mud, still dirt, but
yeah, it doesn't look like that photo, though, does it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that could possibly, I guess, be the footpath there, I guess, but this looks freshly dug out, right? Just because there's piles of mud everywhere.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's what I mean. You just got to, these photos, you just got to examine so much and just use critical thinking. So we ripped that one down, Campbell, and we ripped that one down and destroyed it. I don't actually have a date of when it was ripped down. And then we rebuilt the Oriental Bank in 1882. 1882. So that's that's that one.
This is 1882. Okay. Yep. Nice, not level. Look at this street going down here on the angle and this way.
Look at what a monster is that.
The side of the door, I know, right?
It's a monster. So then, you know, they give us
these are the old power lines, aren't they? Yeah, right.
And the symbolism. The symbols on those huge walls.
Yeah, I know. I can't get in too much closer, unfortunately, but you see what they were.
Yeah, the dates.
Yeah.
Campbell,
so I mean, look at this. You can see it's been scrubbed as well.
Yes.
So you can see the original bit there, and then this whole white bit's been scrubbed out. They left some little weird thing here, but interesting.
Yep. So this only lasted 2 years, Campbell, because you know, we had the collapse, the financial collapse, and this bank just felt, you know, collapsed in 2 years.
They built it, and it was gone in 2 years, like demolished.
Yep, there's no money. They lost too much money, so the business itself collapsed. And then they ripped it down. And would you believe an architect called Perel? Now, if you have a look, there's an etching there. This one here. No,
that one. Yeah.
That's the last picture, or they can't even take a photo. It has to be an etched picture of the doors closing and people there standing to wait, get their money, I bet.
Oh, and a little doggy on the step.
Got to put the doggy in.
Got to put the doggy in.
So if you go to the next picture.
And I mean, look at the clothes that these people are wearing as well, by the way. When's this? 1880s?
1884.
I mean, they're all very well dressed. And look, it's a Monopoly man. There he is.
Oh, yeah. There he is. Beautiful. And this is what we replaced it with, Campbell. But not just one. We replaced that particular side of the Oriental Bank with the building from Perel. And if you have a look in the background of another building, the tall building, that was also Perel's building that replaced the Oriental of the 1850s in the same year, 1890. They were both.
So the original one was built down here, and then the replacement was built here, and then he built these on both spots.
Yep. So in 1890, Perel built 9-story buildings on the original 1850s Oriental Bank site, and the new Oriental Bank of the 1882s, we ripped that down, and in 1880 we built that in the same year. So in the same year, we've built these astronomical buildings.
Yeah, and built under the ground, right, with windows at street level, because that's what you do.
That's
But
what
I mean,
you do.
it doesn't even look anything like this first photo, right? I mean, you've got a building here and this little side street. I guess, they're going to say that was expanded. But it just, I
Yep.
don't know. Then we've got this. See, now that street's big. And in this first one, where you can't see if there's anything behind it, now the street's big. And then we have this, and this is the latest one, and the street's back to mud again.
Yep.
And cleaned up, but it looks, and in this one, it looks like there's nothing.
Nothing there.
Hard to see, they've scrubbed it, though, you can see.
Yeah, they've whitewashed what they want.
Yeah, it doesn't look right, does it? There's,
nope.
Of course, the
and
other
then they've replaced
quite, a few of these same buildings, right? Because they were machines, not buildings. So there was a few of them, and they've just called them the same.
Yep. That's what they cleared out at the start and make a story.
Yeah.
And then we replaced them in 1890, in the same year, with two massive buildings, which at the same time in 1890 was when they were meant to have their financial downfall. Everything
That's
went,
right.
nothing was
I was about to say, the bank closes because there's no money, so they go and whack up 2 9-story buildings, which back in the 1890s, they were tall buildings, man.
Oh shit, yeah, they were real tall for that time of that era. But that we were also in a financial. That was part of a depression at that time. We had two major depressions, which a lot of people don't know. So we've talked about the Oriental Bank, which was it's just a weird story again. So I want to quickly go through these, but we also talked about the Burke and Wills 36-ton granite stone that they moved from, I think the granite was called Harcourt granite, which is, I've still got to find out where Harcourt's was, the actual quarry, but it sounds like it was quite a distance away because they had to drag that piece of granite with they had to use a whole lot of bullocks to move it to a train station, and then from the train station they then had to get that to Spencer Street. Now the story goes that they used it took several weeks for the granite to be even dug out of the ground. So this also will back up our story of how certain things are being built. So it took several weeks for the granite. It took 40 bullocks to move it from the quarry to a railway line. And then from there, it went to the Spencer Street station, which took 250 men and 40 horses and 2 days to move it from Spencer Street to the cemetery.
What?
Now, yeah.
And this was a big thing, right? I mean, it's a fairly good size, but there'd be blocks similar to that in buildings, right? And they're apparently just throwing them around and throwing buildings up, but this was a big thing, right? Out of the ordinary.
Yes, we're just trying to get this piece of 36-ton granite that was 12 feet high by 6 feet square to the cemetery where Burke and Wills were buried, because apparently the vault had already been closed. I think that happened in the, like a few years before this granite thing was done. That's the Burke and Wills one.
Yeah.
So there's a picture there of them dragging it apparently through the streets of Melbourne to get it to the cemetery.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
Yes, that one. So get a close in on this one, Campbell, because this really fascinates me. That writing in the back, the whole picture fascinates me, but the writing in the back, that's very clear, isn't it?
This writing, you mean, or on the back of the brick?
No, on the back of the granite.
I mean,
that's very clear, yeah?
It looks like it's been written on the photo, doesn't it?
Yeah, because have a look at the other pictures of that granite and it don't look that clear to me. It looked like it's been written there a long time ago if it was written on there.
Oh, so that granite Burke and Wills, that's supposed to be this. Yeah, right, I got you.
Yeah, that's them loading it up on at the train station.
And there just seems to be scratchy stuff all over it. like other words, right? See that in the background? What's that say? Irish.
Yeah, that's another part of our undisclosed history. Yeah, and they're all standing there again with their top hats and.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln came to say hello. See.
But again, there's some very multicoloured people there, isn't there?
Yeah. This dude's definitely looks like he's darker skinned. These guys and this guy, yeah.
So, you know, we've somehow got that on that little craney stick there, you know, 36 tonne onto that cast, the railway line.
And this guy here looks like an Indigenous, right? But look how he's dressed.
Yeah.
Got the full suit and top hat. All right. That's
so,
in the cemetery.
Yeah, but if we zoom in on that, have a look. Oh, now, okay. So we've moved.
Which one? This one. Okay.
Okay, this one. Stay there. So we've moved it up to the cemetery, and it's taken 250 men, 40 horses, 2 days to get it from Spencer Street Station to the cemetery, which is not very far. And then they just left that block. The work had been stopped because no one got permission from a so-called society or committee to pay for these 250 men, the 40 horses, the 40 bullocks and the railway transport. No one told the committee what this was going to cost. These were the people apparently that were that won a competition, which they paid £10 for. That was the prize money. These people won that competition to dress that piece of granite. So we go back to the committee. None of this was signed off for. The people, no one was paid, and that block of granite was left in the corner of the cemetery somewhere for. So this happened in 1863. In 1866, it was still sitting in the cemetery. To cut a long story short, there was a lot of kerfuffle for years, and the government came in, and then the government said they would pay, and then the committee weren't happy about what the signage was going to be or the plaque was going to be on this piece of granite. So there was more years messed around with this this tombstone head. So 10 years later, in 1873, they finally put that block of bloody granite on top of the vault in the cemetery for Burke and Wills.
Wow.
10 years of mucking around.
10 years.
Yep.
Because they forgot to think that it needed to be moved from the train station, basically. So it's out there for 10 years. I mean, look at this. Look at the back of this photo. Look at all this, like, what is it? Rubbish? Just looks like old furniture and stuff's been thrown in a big pile.
It certainly does. It's just like, you know, these people are the ones that are dressing and organising this headstone for two very important explorers that died starving, and, you know, the whole story. They were the first to get to, you know, wherever they got to, because I haven't even looked at Burke and Wills. It's not one thing that really... it's another story to me.
It's just a story.
It's just a story. But we are. The story is weird from the start. It just proves to you how much, if this is true, how much manpower and animal power they needed just to move this particular piece of granite, let alone the granite we spoke about that was at the exhibition buildings that came from Storwell. You know, other pieces of granite that come from Phillip Island, and the marble, and look, the list goes on. So this is another thing that this was in the Punch magazine, Campbell.
Yeah. About
this piece of granite. Have a little read of what it says down the bottom.
Yeah. Subject for discussion by the Royal Society. Will the granite blocks for the Burke and Wills monument in the cemetery be available for that purpose before they are lost amid the gradual upheaval of the Australian continent? What? What?
Yeah.
That's a bit strange.
Is that not strange?
Yeah.
This is
Will
what I
that be
mean.
okay? Like that? Like what was going on?
What was
Upheaval.
going on?
Yeah.
What was going on, Campbell? This story just gets weirder and weirder. So we've got all this going on. We've got that in the magazine, Punch magazine. And then we've got the actual Burke and Wills memorial statue, which just wasn't in the centre of Melbourne in the 1864, I think they put that up there. But we also had one in Ballarat. The main fountain in Ballarat was a memorial for Burke and Wills, and there was other memorials in other country towns for Burke and Wills. And that's all granite too.
This is supposed to be the statue. Is this supposed to be the statue of Burke and Wills?
Yes.
Because that looks like a lady.
I've got a clearer photo. It's a very strange pose for two explorers for me. I find it very creepy and I find it very smishmations, as the girls would say from Tartaria, Truth of Tartarians.
Those ones who like Freemasonry.
Yeah, I just find it very weird. And again, we've got granite stone.
And look at the size of it. And it's right in the middle of the street. Like, why would you put it in the middle of the street?
I think it's another story, Campbell.
Yeah. Found, like this was already here, right? Found different people. And they were probably everywhere, right? So they need to come up with a story, Burke and Wills, and then all of these different statues suddenly become Burke and Wills.
Yes.
Or Burke and Frills, because this is a lady, clearly. That's a skirt,
clearly,
man. And that's a lady.
Have a look at the latest. Like I've got photos of what it looks like now. But to have monuments everywhere in our country towns for Burke and Wills, like these are predominant people. Apparently, the story goes that we have to have monuments all over Australia, all over Melbourne, Victorian country towns. Yeah, it takes 10 days. Maybe it's not there. You might have to look it up. Sorry, Dom. 10 years, to get this their monument for their gravestone put up. And then we also we've moved this monument in Melbourne of Burke and Wills, these famous explorers, and the most, that monument is the most architectural built structure we've done in that time period. And we've moved it 5 times, Campbell. That's how important it is. That's how important it is. And we put it in storage. The Council of Melbourne put that in storage for 5 years in an undisclosed place.
The statue?
The whole, yes. The bronze statue and the granite blocks. They have to use, modern cranes to lift those granite blocks and the bronze statue. And then we hide it for 5 years. And they're still fighting about where to put this. They want to put it in the Carlton Gardens. So,
so where is it now?
I really haven't even looked into that one because, like I said, it's just something I wanted to quickly go over. It's probably one I'm going to have to delve into because there's a lot of questions that I didn't realise. There we go. Now, the only thing that always fascinated me when I saw that old photo of that monument in the 1800s, my intuition told me that's an original. That's an original. It's with a made-up story overlaying it.
That's what it looks like. Copper, right? Cast copper. Like, who's casting copper statues like that in Melbourne in the what? When was it made? Back in the
1860s. 1860s.
I mean, it's pretty intricate. I still think this looks
looks like a woman.
looks a bit more masculine here, but it definitely looks like a woman, right?
It's just a strange pose. It's a to me, it's a very domineering. I don't know. There's something. I don't know. It just doesn't fit for me. It just doesn't fit.
Yeah. I mean, well, Burke and Mills, what were they trying to find? I think they were trying to find a road through the outback or the outback sea, was it?
They were trying. Yeah, it's to Central Australia. They were trying to find from us, from south to north or something. But like I said, I haven't. There's subjects that I don't put my energy into because I'm not intuitively led there. I just go where I'm intuitively led, and Burke and Wills is one of them that has really done it for me. But I know when I saw the early statue photos, I always felt that was an original statue, and it's got nothing to do with Burke and Wills, but that's been my instincts. Yeah. And when you look at the story of taking 10 years just to put, this big a big granite piece of stone that, they put so much emphasis in and so much manpower into, and it sat there for 10 years before it eventually even got on the vault of their so-called where their bones are laid. And it's an important explorers, that makes no sense. And now we don't even really, like even to now, we can move it God knows how many times because we really don't give a shit where it goes. I mean, if they're so important, why haven't they been given a dedicated place? Yes, I understand we move it because Melbourne's growing and it's in a middle of a street that we now need. I understand that. But we've got plenty of gardens in Melbourne where we can leave those poor men in their bronze outfits and granite blocks where people go past every day and have a look at. Why do we have to move it and then hide it for 5 years in an undisclosed area or storage for these two predominant explorers? To me, that just smells of shit.
Yes, to put it blankly. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, if it was really a memorial to these two, amazing Australian pioneers, they would have given it a shit, right? And they would have done it properly and put it in the gardens to start with. Like, who puts a statue in the middle of a road in a growing city? That's retarded.
Exactly. So that just gives me more confidence that it was already there and they didn't really know what to do with it, so they just made a big bullshit story about it. Sorry about people that believe the Burke and Wills story, but you know what? I always feel that whatever I'm not, like drawn to, is just something that I don't. It doesn't get energy because it's not real.
They're all stories. I mean, we can't prove any of this stuff one way or the other, really. Like we don't. No one knows what they look like. We can't say, oh yes, that's Burke and Wills. You just got to believe the story, and then when you look into the story, it falls apart. They always do, like so easily. They just fall apart.
Yep. Now I put it on the email. There's a little one photo of I think I wrote it up as a cottage, a block of houses, Melbourne, 1800s.
Okay.
I mentioned this last week too. Now, this is a block of houses. I've never seen them before. I've never seen them since. It came up on a video I was watching, and no one can explain what the timeline is, what they are. That's in Melbourne. Now, have a look at what an interesting photo that is. There's no date. Have a look at the mud.
I mean, the mud here, coming down onto the road. Built up on this platform, got the lights. And that's how you would expect these buildings to be built, right? Like the road's obviously going down and this is flat, so they're on a flat surface. Well, actually it's one building, isn't it? You can see they're all joined. It's just one building. So you can see the joints there, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yep.
And like, look at the sky. What happened to the sky?
Exactly.
It's kind of disappeared there.
Yep. But we've got no date for this, Campbell. Or where it even is in Melbourne.
That says something. I don't know what it says. Can't read it. But yeah, interesting, right? Like, I mean, obviously it's early. They're still cleaning the streets up. You can see the dirt's still up against the gutter here. And they look very well made, don't they? Completely symmetrical.
They're beautifully made, Campbell.
Yeah, yeah. Just sitting there.
Just sitting there. Exactly. Here you go, Campbell. Do you want a nice mansion to live in?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, for sure, man. But this is what's happened, right? They've literally come in and found all this stuff, and yeah, those Schmish nations have just divvied it out, right, to their family and friends. You get this, you get this, and if you're not one of us, go build a bark hut in the background, buddy.
Well, you know what, Campbell, when we do the mansions one, I've actually, so I haven't done it, I've actually found a documentation for 1842, which I will share when we do the mansions, about exactly what I think has happened. There's been invitations to certain groups of people, and yes, they were given some things. So we'll go through that next time. So that's Burke and Wills. We covered that. I spoke about those little cottages. We've looked at that. Now we'll go to the very strange mansion in Sydney. We're going to spend time in Sydney now, Campbell.
Yes.
We're leaving Melbourne.
Yep.
We're going to travel our treacherous bays and head up to Sydney.
All right. Yes, that is Sydney, also they say.
This is Clarence Mansion. This is a photo taken apparently from Clarence Mansion. It is a very strange photo. It really doesn't give us a date. They're saying around about the 1850s with a question mark. What I've been looking at, this photo is in some of the libraries, but not in this context. It's actually not showing this couple that were meant to be the owners of this mansion, apparently. They're only showing from the women across. The men and his family are not in the actual photos they share in the libraries or the Dictionary of Sydney, which I find strange, because if you're going to back up a story that this is the owner and maybe relatives have visited on this day, or acquaintances, or maybe, you know, aunts and uncles, I don't know, but he is not shown. That side of him and his wife and the child is not shown, and you'll see that in a minute.
And like, who's this strange person? Look at that.
Have a look, but look again at the facial, look again at the skin colour.
Yeah,
we're not coming from Ireland, we're not coming from France or wherever they want us to believe. Have a look at this man and his wife. She is, you know, Indigenous.
Yeah, she does look Indigenous for sure.
I mean, we're all bloody Indigenous.
Well, yeah, exactly right. If we're from here.
Yeah. And then you look at the structure of that building.
Yeah.
And then we look at the Sphinx.
Yes.
They're large.
Yeah, well, I mean, that head's bigger than her head. Like they're not small. And I mean, just look at the size of what they're sitting on. Everything's very large, and like, look at the faces on this, man. It's like, that's high quality workmanship, man.
Yeah, and look at the actual, pardon me, is that a lake they're standing on the edge of, or a canal?
Yeah, exactly.
Look at the edge of it.
The whole thing's a man-made deck, yeah.
It's just magnificent.
Yep.
So I've looked into, I've done a close-up.
Yeah, he's a bit hard to say, but she definitely looks Indigenous. I mean, he definitely could be. It's just a bit hard to see him.
Yeah. He just seems to have a nice blurry face for some reason. So that's, again, another picture. Now, as you can see, there's a question mark there, and it was demolished in 1901. Can you imagine demolishing that?
No. Oh, so they are standing above Oh, is it a pond or is that grass? I don't know. But definitely the whole thing's
Oh,
built up. And look what's
yeah.
behind them. Right? I mean, how often do we
Yeah.
see this? There's always this railing, right? When it's made in stone or whatever it is, it's always this shape, right? The same railings everywhere. These pots are everywhere, like all
Yes.
throughout the realm.
But right up the top, is that a fort?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
don't
another
know.
part? What is
Archway
that?
there. It's probably their airport, right?
It's
I think
just,
so.
you know. Look, I had a look at the state, the Dictionary of Sydney say about this place, and they're saying it was built the original owner was in 1842. It was built in 1842. Yet I found an owner. What's his name? There was an Isabella Martin, and James Martin, and James Martin was there in 1820. So no, that's the house. Actually, have a look at that. This is this is meant to be the same house.
That doesn't quite look the same, size and grandeur, does it?
No, and if you go right behind that flower pedestal, there's
Oh, okay.
actually
Right.
a
What is
faded
that?
part.
Yeah,
Look at this. Yeah.
that's strange.
Yes. It's almost like they
Oh,
don't want us to know about this
yeah, it's
property.
almost like they've tried to get rid of it, but didn't quite get there. And they're like,
Yep.
oh, well, it kind of looks like the shadows of the trees. We'll just leave it there. Yeah, right.
So tell me, how can they take a photo like that of it was very majestic and huge by the description of it. They can give us a very clear picture of the ladies and that on the edge. But when they're taking photos of the actual like that, how clear is that?
Mm.
And yet they can't take a proper photo of the house.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Now, is that the house again? Yeah. So they
Yeah.
can't take a clear photo. They have to take it from a distance and then
Behind
try and
the tree.
shade out the actual.
Yeah. Or are these just, found photos, right? And they've just written Clarence on here and tried to shade this out to make it, fit their narrative, right?
Exactly. It's
That's,
strange.
that's a bit weird, that one. So
So
this
this
is,
just shows you the owners, and and you can go onto links about these people, but it contradicts itself because it says it's built by the original owner in 1842, and yet I find that this Mr. Martin, James
mm,
Martin, was there, and he was there in 1814, 1820 as an owner. One part says he's an occupier. I love that. In
yeah.
1853. And then, and when you click onto him, he was actually an owner in 1820.
So I mean, whatever it was, he was there, right? And it wasn't, and the building wasn't supposed to exist at that point.
No. So here we go. If you zoom into that, there's a story about this. It makes no sense either. So one of those links brought me to that particular, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
apparently it is called, it's got a special name, I can't even pronounce it, but it's a paramount sandstone, a very large statue made out of paramount sandstone. It's an exact, which they point out quite a lot, of an ancient Athens structure from 334 BC.
What?
Which was constructed as part of a very dramatic prize. That's all I get.
What? Constructed as a prize. What does that mean?
A very dramatic prize.
Dramatic prize.
This is what I mean. How they speak back then to how we speak is just, what does that mean? That's exactly right. But it's a very odd photo.
It is. So it looks a little bit overgrown too, doesn't it? Really, it doesn't.
Yes.
Doesn't look manicured for this kind of a building, right, or a house.
So if that is so dramatic, it's been a dramatic prize, whatever that means. It's an exact. They really emphasise that, a replica from 334 BC of an Athens structure. Why are you taking such a crappy photo of it?
Yeah, this is a really bad photo, man. Like, look at the whiteout here. It's crazy.
Now, they called it the monument of, and I'll have to spell this because I'm really bad, Lysi Creates, Crates.
Yeah, Lysa crates. Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yes.
Lysa crates. Don't know what Lysa crates is.
So, again, you've got history here. You would think you can take a bloody good photo 1 minute and then you take a crappy photo. Okay, what?
Right, okay, I found it. This is, hang on, where are we? Lysa crates. So I'm thinking this is some kind of tech because, look,
it's a monument
of Lysa crates, right? And here it is. Wow. See that?
Yes.
Look at
that. Wow. And they've emphasised 3 times exact replica of a 334 BC Lysa crate monument.
Wow. Okay, so I mean, how would they even know that this monument existed, right? This is
exactly right.
This is in near the Acropolis of Athens. So yeah, this is in Greece near Athens. Erected by Korygos Lysicrates, a wealthy patron of musical performances. Interesting. It's the theatre of Dionysus. Dionysus was one of their gods. I can't exactly remember what he stood for.
Yeah.
But acting, right? Acting, the play, the falsification, the story.
Exactly. So how's that for that place? I mean, that place just gets more and more interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's weird, right?
Yep. Now, if you go,
it's looking, like it was there and probably inhabited, right?
Yes, and then you look at all the growth around that photo that they took. How old is that photo?
Yeah, exactly. We don't know, right? I mean, the whole sepia tone thing, like the sepia tone, like they just sort of say, oh, it's just a little bit of a phase or some type of, development. All the sepia tones could be old world, right? That could have just been their way of photographing.
Exactly. There could be an original. So that's the picture they give you from the Sydney Directory of Sydney. And as you can see, that's also overexposed because we've seen one much better. And there's no man and his wife standing there with their child.
Yeah. This is different. These two are the same. They look exactly the same. But this one on the edge here, like has she been implanted in there?
Maybe.
Around, there's a bit more of an edge. There's a bit more of an edge to her, right, than there are to this lady. I don't know, just saying.
Yeah. But it's also proving the fact that how our photos are manipulated, because that's coming from the Sydney Directory of Sydney of what is collecting for information for historians and for people that do research. That's not a true photo.
Now, this lady, she was in the first one, but
yes.
But you can see how dark this one is, right? And a lot more sort of crisp and detailed. And then this one, like they would have had to get that and, redevelop it and mess with it to make it look like this.
Which one's the real, we're getting two different. Oh, that's overexposed, very sepia like the rest of the photos. Are they original photos? Or what is
Yeah.
that?
Like, yeah, is that the original? And this other one that's darker, like they've
But
I
it
don't
must,
know,
but that,
redeveloped.
why did they cut that man out and his wife? Why?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, I guess because, you know, she's probably the most indigenous, but I mean, also pretty blurry. Right? This one's blurrier. Right? It's not as
Yeah.
focused as this one. This one's a bit crisper, especially around the faces.
Yes. And she's
This
very indigenous
one,
looking, though.
this one could be, but
Oh,
especially the lady that was, you know, that's been cut out, and
yeah.
she probably looks more indigenous, right, in this photo. And so they've just,
Yep.
messed it up a
So
bit.
that property was described as having cascading gardens down to the shore that looked like a fairyland.
Yeah,
The
right.
gardens, the gardens were absolutely, apparently, they were like botanical gardens that were just amazing. So it's a very interesting subject, that one, and it's got a lot more questions and answers.
Yeah,
Or maybe
I mean,
more
well,
answers.
we get those pictures, right, of like what is it, Saint Lake George? You've seen those Lake George photos, yeah?
Yes, yes, yes.
Like, is this where this place was? Because this whole Lake George, like, there's really no explanation really for this, is there? But this is
Is
some
that
of
the
the
one in
pictures we get,
Canberra?
right?
Yes,
And
in Canberra.
yeah, city of Canberra, newly christened capital of Australian Commonwealth. Look at this. I mean,
Yes.
and this is like a photo almost. I mean, I think it's a drawing, but the federal city, Lake George, view from the governor's residence. I mean, look at this place. I mean, this looks like where that photo was taken, the same kind of thing, right? Same kind of grandeur.
Very,
Right?
absolutely, absolutely. Good point.
So they said there that this is, and Canberra's within New South Wales. So I don't know if, well, I mean, the ACT is, right. Here's a picture, a
Yeah.
drawing of it.
Yep. And there's a drawing like that of Sydney Cove by this convict
Oh,
artist.
yeah, cool.
Yes. So when you go, there's another photo there of where that mansion was, apparently. And I've got it under Clarence Mansion Land 2025. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
called Sandy Point now or, yeah. So if it was there, then I bet that was a star city or something.
yeah. Well, Sydney Harbour is full of. It was the whole thing was a star city. Like there's star forts everywhere. I mean, even just look down, you can see this. This is a wall. This is a man-made wall here. This isn't like a
Yes.
natural
Yes.
jutting out. And you know all the islands throughout Sydney Harbour, they've all got little forts on them. You know, bits
Yep.
of the Star City. It's everywhere, and of
Yep.
course they've knocked a lot of it over. You know, there was what was that big fort we looked at last time? The castle, Fort Macquarie, I think it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they knocked that one over. Is this the
So
old
that
train? No.
so that they talk about it being a grand botanical garden, and that the garden swept down to the shores towards the water. So yeah,
It might have been where these tennis courts are now,
yeah,
and all the land's coming down here. Yeah. Yeah,
amazing, isn't it?
cool. Wow. They've really done a job in Australia. They've knocked so much over.
Oh God, yeah, all the evidence. See you later. Bye bye. But that's why we're here.
To uncover it again.
Absolutely. So, do you want to go into the the French explorers and the journals that they wrote? Have we got time?
Sure. Yeah, we've got a
Okay.
bit more time. All right, let's do it. French explorers.
So I think I put that under the heading of alternative history.
Yeah, here we go. So Joseph Banks, a director of the BEIC, was active with both Cook and Flinders in the establishment.
No,
Coastal.
We've got to go back from that one.
I'm going.
No, go right to the start, Campbell. No, right to the start. Sorry, keep going, keep going. Keep going.
Bay.
Where we're going to all those places. Oh, I think
All right,
towards the end now.
I've got this one. It's obvious to researchers James Cook.
All right, we can go and do that one. Yep, let's just read that. You read that one, Campbell.
It is also obvious to researchers that James Cook, Matthew Flinders, and Governor Phillip were sponsored by the BEIC, which is what, the British East India Company? Yeah.
Correct.
And the mythical discovery of Australia is simply subsequent British propaganda justifying some very nefarious activities that took place in the Pacific in the late 1700s. After Flinders' incarceration as a British spy in Mauritius, both the BEIC and his patron, Sir Joseph Banks, abandoned him. Well, Flinders, okay, I never knew that Flinders was put in jail. Borden suffered a similar fate under Napoleon, and the question rises for the historian, what deal was struck in the early 1800s by the British East India Company with the French and the Dutch owners of New Holland that sustained the maps of the area now being presented as authentic history in our Australian colonial schools? Okay, so that's interesting. So they're saying that, because we have these stories that, that they tell us that the Dutch sort of came out here, right? And we have Dirk Hartog, who had a shipwreck on West Australian coast, and that's kind of it, right? They just sort of say, they just sort of sailed around it a bit and decided they didn't want it. And that's kind of what we get.
Yeah, that's what we get. And then yet there's been so many, yet they can see Sydney. They go to Sydney, they go to Tasmania, and yet they go past Port Phillip Bay in Victoria so many times, yet they don't discover it. They don't see it. What, are they blind?
Yeah.
Really? So, I mean, it's just such a ridiculous story. And this also backs up the story that we discussed in one of our other shows of that newspaper, the 1878 newspaper I've got in the barn.
On the Dunny Wall,
Yeah, on the Dunny Wall, where he says that Cook was given the maps from Abel, and he came directly here, and that he was literally a bloody a spy. He was spying.
Yeah.
He didn't explore anything.
Yeah, for the East India Company, yeah. And that's the thing, right? We have the British East India Company, and then we have the what's the Dutch one? The Dutch East India Company. Same thing, right? Same name. So we've got all these companies going around the world, basically claiming land, right? Yeah.
Yeah, claiming land, trading, finding the next exotic product to sell. No different to now. And yet, I think the East Indies is a big deep dive, because they, look, they were there in the early 16th century. I think they were even earlier, the Dutch East Indies, and they were just travelling everywhere. So, and even in the comments that you get, we've got Indigenous people putting in comments on some of the shows and saying that they remember their elders telling them about the Dutch being on the land, and some of them stealing off them and them helping them, and, there were white settlers here everywhere. So why aren't we listening to these Indigenous people?
Yeah, so, it's interesting. There's definitely a lot of windmills around in the older photos too, right? Which we think is Dutch, but I think that's just, old world.
Absolutely. And then I was reading another a book. We'll go into that. It's all about the inland sea. Go back to Batman, where you saw Batman, and while I'm talking.
This one?
Yeah, just stay there for a minute. So this 1933 book that I downloaded, it was about a gentleman who collected a whole lot of stories about the explorers and, wanted to, ascertain that a lot of these early Dutch and Polynese and Spanish explorers needed to be noted. He also followed one of the Dutch explorers who some of them, were involved in what we would call pirates, what we've been told were pirates, because they were rebels. They didn't like being restrained and having red tape literally on the boats when they wanted to go on some of these boats that were commissioned by governments and by the Indies, the East Indies companies. So they decided to literally try and get their own boats or rent boats themselves and they'd go out and explore themselves because they didn't want to be told where they could and couldn't go, even back then. And there's a story there about Cook, and Cook was part of these rebels. And these rebels also were shitty that the Spanish were taking so much from other lands that they would then attack the Spanish ships and take what they took and try and give it back to some of these people. And Cook was part of some of these rebel boats.
Yeah, right.
So he was, yeah, I was very interested when I read that. So, it just backs up that Cook wasn't the person we're being told he was at all.
Sure. No, not at all.
So, okay, now I can't read it because it's too small for me on the phone. Can you read that, Campbell, please?
Yeah. So Joseph Banks, a director of the British East India Company, was active with both Cook and Flinders in the establishment of such coastal shipping lanes, and Banks' cover was that of a botanist of the Royal Geographic Society. Banks was also
that was his cover.
That was his cover, yeah, because they say he was the director of the British East India Company. They wanted to come out, and the cover was that he was, a botanist for the Royal Society. Also very busy on other plans and tried to get to the explorer Mungo Park to go to New Holland. Mungo at the time was enamoured of a Scottish lass, and a young navigator named Matthew Flinders requested the patronage of Banks and the British East India Company to both chart the coast.
How interesting is that, Campbell?
So, we get told a much different story than that in Australia.
So I have to then stop there because this is coming from the Tartarian Truther Girls. They do an amazing amount of research, and I'll give people directions on that later. But they actually got their information from Rex Gilroy, if you can wait on that one, who contributed to the Nexus magazines. He's also contributed to, in the early times before the Nexus took over, and he also contributed to a magazine called Truth Hunters. Now, Truth Hunters, I can't find that magazine anywhere. It's not available anywhere. Even like Rex was the first one to write. He was an archaeologist, him and his wife, and a lot of other people in the 1990s and late 1880s who looked at the pyramids of Australia. They got right into a lot of alternative stuff, and he's written many books. And now I can't get those books. I've tried Amazon's and can't get them. I went to the Victorian Library. I can get one of his books, but I wasn't allowed to borrow it. I had to read it at the Victorian Library. And there's other sites that are meant to have it, but they're sold out. They're not available. So the girls from Tartaria Truthers made a connection with Rex before he died, and he gave them a USB stick full of the magazines and other information that he had. Now, this information we're getting now is what the girls got from Rex's magazine, the Truth Hunters.
Nice.
So very interesting.
Girls, make a copy and send it to us.
Please do, girls. And where are you? Oh my God,
yourselves. Where are you?
We love you, girls. So another bit of the excerpt was what you just had up then, which again is very interesting reading. And it all goes into the inland sea because apparently Sturt, I've got to remember now, what does that one say? Campbell.
It says in Sturt's journal, he stated that he had been told of a South Australian sea by authorities, but the further he explored, the more convinced he became that the salt sea had emptied out via a huge convulsion of nature. Interesting. That's what they were talking about with that slab, right? Burke and Mills.
Exactly.
He attributed this phenomena to the flood of Noah. Interesting, and insisted upon its recent catastrophic effects, changing the landscape on a vast scale, thereby earning himself the ridicule of his contemporaries of the day. I mean, that's interesting that he says it emptied out through South Australia. I did a video, I can't remember what it's called, but you can actually see on Google Earth these all through Adelaide and South Australia. It looks like this, like a big runoff of water has gone through there, like a massive one.
Correct. Yep. And I can show you even in Victoria, like they say that the massive amount of trees in areas were all cut down for the, to keep the steam going for this and that for the gold rush. No, it's all come from a big flush of water. This is the magazine, which I'd give anything to read that magazine.
Yes. Does anyone have a copy? Photocopy it. Send it in. So this is 2003, 22 years ago.
Yep.
The Phoenicians, king of Bashan, Uphart's facts, that's out of place artifacts normally. Rediscovering Australia, straightening out Flinders, Australian cat mystery. Yeah, man, that sounds very interesting. If anyone's got a
very
copy,
interesting.
Make copies.
Yeah. So they were trying to ridicule Sturt because he believed in that inland sea. And there we go. This is an excerpt of what was in that magazine as well.
Yep. So showing basically the water flow. What does it say? North-south channel. Okay, so they're saying there was a channel right through the middle of Australia of water.
So if that was the case, and and we had that settlement again, and they had that ship that got lost for 12 years. They never found them. Settlement of Dutch people. There you go.
Did they actually, sail in? Okay, I gotcha. And I've got a map too, which shows a whole, like an ocean in sort of this area too. And there's been always lots of stories, and we've got Lake Eyre still,
Correct.
which apparently is starting to fill up again. That's a big salt lake out here. So
Well,
interesting.
there we are about that. So there you go. That reads about Eyre.
Yep. Lake Eyre, the first European lake eyes on it, which now bears its name, one of the driest regions in South Australia. As for the inland sea, Lake Eyre was bone dry. Australia's biggest lake is also the 13th biggest lake in the world when full, being 15 metres below sea level. It's the lowest geographical point on the island. Okay, so it's the lowest point of Australia.
Correct.
Lake Eyre, which is basically here. And
Yep.
I mean, it's just in that picture, you can kind of see the remnants, right, of the water. All these massive
then you
lakes.
Then you go into the artesian water, which the girls cover in the next one, because I've always thought that it's really weird. The artesian overlay fits that whole area of that lake.
Lake Eyre.
Yep.
So yeah, the Artesian Basin. They say it's the biggest water storage, underwater basin in the world. Like Australia's got so much water; it's just all underground, right?
Exactly. But also too, when you look at it, if you look at the geographic of Melbourne and Victoria, we're meant to have this, this basalt rock underneath, which bluestone come from. But we've also got gold, and we've also apparently got the gold in Melbourne, where the Melbourne area is highly toxic, like really toxic.
Really?
Apparently. Yes. Yes.
Wow. Toxic
gives
gold.
off vapours.
Such a thing.
Yeah, apparently, whether that's another narrative, I don't know, but apparently Melbourne, there's a certain area of Melbourne where if you dig that gold, it's quite toxic. So,
Wow.
but how interesting is this, hey?
Oh, yeah, it's obvious to
Or
researchers that
inland sea.
James Cook, Flinders and Governor Phillip were sponsored by the British East India Company, and the mythical, I've already read this, haven't I? The discovery of Australia
Oh,
is simply subsequent British propaganda. So,
yep.
so it was a business deal, right? I mean, and, you know, maritime law, right? That's the law of
Exactly.
the ocean. They sail around and they use the law of their boat for the laws of
Yep.
the, you know, introduce it to the lands that they decide that they want to conquer. And then
Correct.
they
And
change the
also,
history. Yeah, you go.
yep. Oh, yeah. And also remember the interview you and Callie did with Stephen Strong.
Yes.
And he talks about the Indigenous people saying that they actually traded from the inland sea. They were trading. People were trading here, there.
Yeah. And,
From
and
the
that there
inland
was
sea,
a big
boats were coming
city
in.
full of, big city out there full of white people. When
Yes.
all the convicts, all the Irish convicts rebelled and ran away and met the Aboriginals, and they told them to go into the middle, into the inland sea where the city full of white fellas was.
Yeah, go follow their mob.
Mm. So,
Exactly. But
I mean, so that could have
that,
been there, that ocean could have been existing like 200 years ago, right? Even less. And they just wipe it and there was some earth change, right? Which is
yep,
interesting because they get this sort of reset, you know, 1850-ish. I don't know what it was.
something
Um,
happened.
but yeah, so I mean, it could have just been the takeover, right? The introduction of the new paradigm could have been the reset, or who knows, the flood may have been that
I
recent,
think we
right?
did. Yep,
Or
I think it was
cataclysm.
because
I mean, it's
there's early
interesting.
photos. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like it'd be more like land movement, wouldn't it, if the ocean emptied and then they were talking about they have to move that block because it might get swallowed up by the earth or something. You know, land changes.
It's a very strange thing to say at the bottom of that photo of that granite piece block, isn't it?
Mm. And then mentoring Noah's flood, and of
Yeah,
course he gets ridiculed because that's not the story. I mean, it's all a story. I mean, the further you go into this, like the more you just got to question, like it's everything. Like it's
yeah,
everything. Everything's a story. And with
yep,
photography, I'm sure photography goes back
a
hundreds of
long
years.
time.
Right? Yeah, not just. I mean, because the dumbest thing, right, is, and you can search it and you'll find it, that there's a photo of the first camera. How's that?
Yeah,
Hello?
how's that work?
How's that possible? It's
It's like the people taking photos of the man on the moon. Who's taking the photos?
taking the photos when they leave. Yeah, it's all just, just silly stories, right? And they've just blindsided us. And yeah, and I don't think that this invasion was that long ago. I
No.
think, you know, hundreds of years. You know, they try and tell us, oh, thousands of years, and they throw in the Anunnaki and the fallen angels and all this kind of stuff.
I don't
Um,
believe in any of that.
I think it's a lot more recent, and you know, the ones that came in and just ruined stuff was these companies, the
Yeah,
corporations who deal with dead
yes,
people and use maritime law, and they
yes.
sail around and steal countries and commit genocide and all this kind of stuff, right, to get control.
They're still doing it.
And they're
It's
still
still
doing it.
happening.
Yeah, like literally last week, like in Persia,
Yes,
right? It's still going on. Mm.
yes. It's just a different name. They just fit the whatever the decade is, like the clothing.
Mm.
It's all part of the labels, the clothing, the way people look. They've all got the same look at that time period. They've got the same language at that time period. They say certain things a certain way. The houses look like this, was this and that. It's just, all to fit the narrative, the whole lot. So
Yeah,
we've
man.
got some pretty strong evidence there. And I've always felt the East Indies Corporation had something to do with it, because I've actually got manuscripts that I've found that also relate to, and I found this very strange, and I'm just going to, it might not be exactly right. Like, the thing is, what I've found in my research, Campbell, is, and it's something my husband says all the time, nothing's real unless it's right in front of you.
Yeah.
Nothing's really real unless you can verify it. How can someone verify something that happened 2,000 years ago, 300 million years ago? You can't. You can only verify from very close. So,
I totally agree.
It's just a fantasy. Like they give us mythology and tell us that's mythology or it's a fairy tale or whatever. In whose mind?
Yeah.
Whose mind is that? Whose illusion is that? And yet this, what we believe are the Romans and the Egyptians and the Greeks, and they keep pushing us in that agenda, the Anunnaki, da-da-da-da. Why? Because that's where they want us to think. That's where they want our brain. Our brain can only refer back to us what our eyes see, really. So it's just constant programming of these names. They're constantly repeated and repeated and repeated. Why would someone in the 1800s want to dress up in a toga from 2,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Unless that is a statue from 2,000 years ago. And he was a friggin' Roman or a Greek or whatever.
Or from 500 years ago, right? Because they changed all the calendars and all the dates and timelines and blah, 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 push everything into the past.
Yes.
It's just a story, right? All the world is a stage, and we can't prove anything unless we experience it and interact with it. You know,
exactly.
even the past, right? Think about the past. Have a chat with your friends from about a party you had 20 years ago, and they'll all have different stories and see different things.
Exactly.
And
it all goes back to perspective, doesn't it? That we discussed.
Man. That's what it is. Got to be self-educated people.
Yeah, so there's some very serious questions there, and someone's done some research and looked into the East Indies, and like I've always felt, the answer for us is very, very close, and it's from the East Indies because, like I said, I found a manuscript, a few actually, in the last week. One of them is a story about. This all goes back to that leasing that I was talking about, the Crown land leasing. And one of them was saying that they brought in the Victorian Magna Carta.
Yeah, right, Magna Carta, yeah, okay.
The Victorian one for Victoria, because there was problems with this Crown land leasing and about being able to purchase and da-da-da, and apparently then the Queen then said, okay, Victoria will have a Magna Carta. But in the same token, again, these timelines, we have got the Corporation of Melbourne. We have got the Corporation of Australia. So we've got the Corporation of the Commonwealth. So this is going back when they landed in Port Phillip Bay. In 1837, we've got a Corporation of Victoria. And they're quite proud about it, Campbell. They're very proud about it. And then the Queen says, no, we've got the Magna Carta of Victoria in, 1838, 1839. What is going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, the corporations took over, right? They're just ignoring the law, if that's a true, account that someone was trying to bring in the Magna Carta to make it, fair. But the corporations take over, right? And corporations only deal with dead people. The corporation, right? This is where the whole identity fraud, birth certificate, straw man comes in. But it's interesting, the Dutch East India Company and the British East India Company, and what was Christopher Columbus apparently searching for when he found America, right? He was looking.
He was the same as Cook.
Yeah, but he was looking for a passage to the East Indies. That's why the natives, that's debatable, of America are called Indians. So there's a lot of focus on the East India, isn't there?
A lot. And Columbus was another bloody, if he existed, there's people already finding out that he was another spy for the corporation, as was Cook. And now we find all this as well.
And he was a psychopathic murderer too, Columbus.
Yep.
He was shocking. But I mean, Cook was no better. He turned up here ready for war and then started it. And, then he tried to do the same thing in Hawaii and they speared him to death on the beach and killed him.
Yeah, they ate him.
Did they eat him today?
But then, you've got New Zealand's got its own story too. I mean, these parasites were in New Zealand doing the similar stuff. So and then there was a war in India at the time, and there was a war in China. So what is going on?
It's the invasion, man. We got invaded.
Exactly. And I think, we both believe it happened a lot sooner than what we're being told.
Yeah, a lot more recent for sure, man. Definitely and the whole Noah's flood, they say, 6,000 years ago, but we just read someone was saying, well, maybe it was recent in the 1800s. So everything's been shifted around. It's just all a story, right? It's like the photos. You just write a date on them, and we think that means something. It doesn't. It just means that someone wrote a number on a photo.
Correct. And like I said to you before we went on air, I found a group of young girls in Castlemaine that was meant to be in the early 1800s, and right down the bottom of the photo, it's written in black and white, the name of wherever the photo was taken, December 1608. As clear as day.
Yep, 1608, or is it I-608? Is 1608 608? I mean, it's so many places. Yeah, man, they've messed with time, they've messed with everything, but it's all falling apart. That's the good news.
Absolutely, and the East Indies has a lot to do with it, with Indonesia, and Australia was Java. It was called Java at one stage.
Yeah, right. So, interesting.
New Holland and Java, the Cape of Java.
That's why we can't find a lot of stuff on Australia, is because we don't know what it was called.
Exactly.
Before New Holland, right? So it's hard to find stuff on it. But
so we were invaded just like every other country in that time period. And the flooding, like even Sturt says, a lot of our deserts were once, like the centre of Australia, was once an open inland sea. And because of the flooding, it took all that water out and redistributed it and became a desert. So if we did have, like they say, the white mob there with our cities, that's why our deserts are red, they're all smashed up brick.
Yeah, I think so. I think, there was a lot of demolition going on out there, and that's, of course, we've got the biggest salt lake, right? The salt stay, right? So it's the remnants of an ocean. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. The whole Sahara was green, right? The Sahara Desert was green like 300 years ago. And they try to say, no, tens of thousands of years.
Yep.
So,
and you've found maps of Antarctic. There's maps of Antarctic where it's lush and green and there's animals depicted in it. It's never depicted as a snow area.
No, never. And most of the time, Australia is part of that landmass.
Exactly.
It's part of that landmass. And Papua New Guinea's there. It's a bit detached. It's a bit of an island still, but it's very big. But you can't find Australia on them. It's literally part of what we call Antarctica. So, and it's interesting because we're the only land revealed, right? Yes, you've got the newsletter, guys. If you want to, we're creating a newspaper. If you want to put something in, submit it. We'll print it in our paper. So, articles, theories, photos, whatever you want. And of course, yes. Then in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about the invasion live in Mullaney, and Paula is going to be there. So if you can come up and say hello to Paula as well, right? But if you want to know more about the whole story of what's going on and who invaded us and all that stuff, I'll leave a link below. Get your tickets. Come see us live in Mullaney.
Fantastic. Yes, well, I mean, it's all leading up to it, isn't it? Isn't it like the collective mind again? Here we go. Because we're all finding, we're not even talking about any of this, and yet all of a sudden all this stuff's coming up that we're finding individually, and then bang, it's like it just gets taken down the ether.
That's why we need to get together and catch up and meet people, right? That's the biggest part of these live events, is meeting all the people and making connections and finding all the little pieces of the puzzle that you need, right?
Absolutely. It's so exciting, so exciting. So are we able to go on to the next part, or are we going to do another part?
we might have to
about
do
the
it there because
friendship.
I've got to go out and get a train to the airport soonish and start flying
That's it.
around. So
We can do French explorers
French
next and what
exploring,
they saw.
nice. Let's do
The
that next
French,
time. So, because
yep,
I
what they saw in Sydney.
haven't heard about the French at all. Really, we don't get told that at all. We get told a bit about the Dutch and the English, and that's it.
Well, I personally think that the Irish had a lot to do, and I don't think they were just the victims here. I think the Irish had a lot to do with the corporation. I think the Scottish Rite had a lot to do with the corporation. And I think also too, like you've got Napoleon, they're mentioning Napoleon, the French, they were all in
That's the
cahoots with
thing.
each other.
Yeah, at this time period, Napoleon was running around ransacking Europe, right? And North Africa. So
Exactly.
that was all sort of
So
going
we
on at
all,
the same time. Yeah. So yes,
yep,
we will get
we've
on
got
to
the
that next
American War.
time.
Yeah, we'll do this French explorer. I'm going to call him Frey because I can't say his whole name. It's a bloody long French name. And Frey was a French explorer who navigated into Sydney Cove and took a man called Jacques Agago, Arago, Agago. I don't know.
The gay
But
guy. No.
he was a French writer and an artist and an explorer, and they all travelled into Sydney Cove in 1819, and their description of what they saw, not just them, but they also asked some travellers from Europe what they thought of New Holland at the time, and it's all in the book called The Narrative of a Voyage Around the World, and you can't get this book. You can only get excerpts of this book. And the excerpts are enough to tell you what's going on. But, there's been other ways of finding out. So we'll do that when you get back from Amsterdam.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. All right, that'll be good. Yeah, so that'll be in a couple of weeks as I'm away for a few weeks in Amsterdam. But I'll be making updates. All right, well, there we go. So a lot more stuff there. Guys, give us a like, subscribe, but most of all, share any info you've got.
Absolutely.
Put the story
I love
together.
your comments.
Yes, Paula goes through all the comments and reads them all. So,
I go through all of them. Yep, I love them,
does.
and thank you so much. They're just fabulous and so much great information and thoughts and that. I just love it. Thank you so much.
Yep. So leave it all below, guys, and let's put this picture together. All right,
Absolutely.
well, there we go. Well, thanks for another.
Well, have a great time in Amsterdam.
I will. Thank you. Thank you. I'll send photos. And we'll talk in 2 weeks. So thanks for another action-packed, information-packed, history-busting chat.
Love it. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
Right. Talk to you soon,
See you, Campbell.
Paula. See ya.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye.